Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today's story takes us back over 2,000 years to the very beginnings of the Roman Empire. We'll follow the humble twins Romulus and Remus, see how brave farmers and spirited citizens built laws, fought fierce battles, and dreamed of a city that would change the world. Get ready to explore a tale of courage, friendship, and the power of ideas that still inspire us today. The story of the Roman Empire is like the grandest of sagas, filled with courage, hope, ambition, and the simple dreams of people much like you and me. To understand it is to walk side by side with soldiers marching under the hot sun, senators speaking with trembling voices, children chasing doves among marble columns, and an emperor gazing at dawn from his palace balcony, wondering if his empire will last another day. This tale unfolds in 7 great chapters, each one a living picture of fear, joy, bravery, and change. Let us journey together in simple words to discover how a small village on the Tiber River grew into a world-changing power and why its lessons still speak to us across 2,000 years. Long ago, in the wild hills of central Italy, there stood 2 babies left by a riverbank. Their names were Romulus and Remus. A gentle she-wolf found them, pressed them close, and fed them her milk. This image, a mother's fierce love, reminds us that family and compassion can spring from the most unexpected places. As the boys grew strong, they learned to hunt and to protect each other. One day, they decided to build a city on the spot where the wolf had found them. But a fight broke out over which hill to choose. In anger, Romulus struck Remus down. Romulus wept through the night, standing beside the lifeless form of his brother. Those tears, stained by sorrow, still mark the walls of the first Roman home. Romulus named the city Rome after himself. He vowed it would be a place where laws guided every citizen, where even a king could be held to the rules he made. This promise, born from grief, became the heart of Rome, the idea that no one, however great, stood above the law. For nearly 200 years, Rome was ruled by kings. They built the first temples and laid out straight roads that would become the famous Roman streets. The early Romans worked side by side, farmers planting olives and grapes, builders raising walls of stone, and priests whispering prayers in hidden shrines. But even then, Romans hated the idea of a ruler who could act without question. In the last days of the monarchy, one king, Tarquin the Proud, grew cruel. He broke his own laws, punished innocent people, and ignored the pleas of mothers whose sons he had thrown into prison. At last, a young noble named Brutus led a quiet revolt. Under a moonlit sky, Romans cast out their king. Fire flickered in every alley, and free citizens cheered through the night. From that moment on, Rome would never again be led by a king. Instead, they set up a republic, a government by the people through elected leaders. It was a bold experiment. Could humans govern themselves fairly? The answer would come through trials of war, fierce debates in open forums, and the sacrifice of those who believed in the common good. In the new republic, 2 consuls shared power. Each consul had the right to stop the other so that no one could become too strong. Senators, drawn from the wealthy families, held important debate in the Curia, the great meeting hall. Ordinary citizens, too, had voices. They gathered in the forum to vote on laws and to watch dramatic trials. Young Marcus was the son of a grocer. Every day after school, he ran to the forum, eyes wide with wonder at the senators' flowing togas and the judges' stern faces. He dreamed of one day speaking there to shape the city's fate. His best friend, Julia, worked at her father's vineyard, carrying clay jars of wine along dusty roads. She listened to merchants who'd traveled across the sea, telling tales of glittering cities in Spain, Egypt, and Greece. As Rome grew, it felt both exciting and dangerous. The Republic fought wars against neighbors like the Etruscans and the Samnites. Each victory brought new lands and fresh citizens, but also old fears. Would those lands remain loyal? Could strangers truly become Romans? Debate in the Forum turned sharp. Should Rome grant full citizenship or keep new people at arm's length? Tensions grew between the ruling wealthy class and the common people, plebeians, who worked the farms and bore the brunt of military service. Marcus and Julia watched as protests flared. Plebeians formed their own assembly, elected tribunes to protect their rights, and forced the Senate to publish the 12 Tables, Rome's first written laws. Justice was no longer a secret favor. It was something all could read and follow. This idea of written law, open to all, became a beacon that still shines in courts around the world today. By the 2nd century BCE, Rome's legions, disciplined armies of citizen soldiers, had marched across Italy, defeated Carthage in the Punic Wars, and sent armies into Spain, Greece, and North Africa. Each battlefield victory brought slaves, gold, and new problems. Fields once tilled by free farmers lay empty, while wealthy landowners planted vast estates with slave labor. Marcus saw his father struggle to compete. Julia felt the pain of families torn apart as neighbors were sold to foreign masters. Still, at home, festivals filled the streets. Chariot races in the Circus Maximus shook the ground, and the roar of the crowd lifted the heart. Triumphs, parades of generals draped in purple, passed under the temple of Jupiter, who stood tall on the Capitoline Hill. Smoke from burning incense swirled around him as captives in chains stumbled through the crowds. Yet behind the cheers lay a restless restlessness. Wealth poured in, and with it, corruption. Governors in distant provinces collected taxes with heavy hands. Senators argued bitterly over how to spend the treasure. Some called for land reforms to help the poor. Others feared any change to their own comfortable lives. In this age of plenty and strife, one man rose above them all, Gaius Julius Caesar. He was a soldier, a writer, a speaker whose voice could enchant both rich and poor. He told the people that he could heal Rome's wounds, redistribute land, curb corruption, and open the Senate to talented newcomers. He marched legions into Gaul, modern France, winning battles and winning hearts through generous treatment of captured tribes. Back in Rome, his rival, Pompey, grew uneasy. The Senate feared Caesar's power. They ordered him to lay down his command. On a cold January day in 49 BCE, Caesar stood on the banks of the Rubicon River. He faced his soldiers, eyes shining with resolve, and declared, "The die is cast." He crossed the river into Italy, knowing that civil war would follow. The streets of Rome shook with marching legions. Brother fought brother. Pompey fled to Greece, only to be defeated. Caesar, now master of Rome, accepted the title of dictator for life. Yet even he could not escape fate. In the marble hall of the Senate, he fell to the blades of men he thought his friends. His last words, "Et tu, Brute," echo across centuries as a warning. Power can blind even the most gifted. After Caesar's death, Rome plunged into fresh turmoil. Mark Antony and Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, clashed over his legacy. Young Octavian, only 19, surprised everyone with patience and cunning. He built alliances, spoke with humility, and let Antony drag his armies east. Then, on a starry night in 31 BCE, Octavian's fleet overtook Antony's at the Battle of Actium. The Republic lay in ruins, and Octavian stood supreme. He took the name Augustus, the revered one, and claimed he would restore the Republic. In truth, he held all power, but he cloaked it in old traditions, elections, public festivals, and speeches. He reformed tax collection, rebuilt crumbling buildings, and sent poets like Virgil and Horace to sing Rome's glory. Under Augustus, Rome entered a time of peace and prosperity called the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Soldiers marched with lowered swords, merchants traveled safely, and artists carved gods and heroes in marble. Children grew up hearing stories of their emperor's kindness, that he wept at the sight of a battered soldier, that he shared his own food with the poor, and that he turned his palace into a place where any citizen could speak freely. In these tales lived the spirit of Rome, that greatness was built on justice, generosity, and respect for all. For 2 centuries, Rome seemed invincible. Aqueducts carried fresh water into cities. Roads stitched the empire together from Britain to Egypt. Theater troupes performed tragedies under the open sky. Stoic philosophers taught that true strength comes from facing hardship with calm dignity. Yet, even as marble temples rose, new ideas stirred. A teacher from Judea spoke of love and forgiveness. His followers told stories of healing the sick and walking on troubled waters. They asked only for simple faith and kindness. At first, Romans saw them as another sect, harmless if odd. But their message spread like wildfire among the poor and oppressed. Emperors tried to stamp out this new faith. Persecutions came, with cruel games in the arena. Families huddled in hidden chambers, sharing bread and whispering prayers. Yet each martyr's courage drew others in. The empire's heart, it seemed, yearned for something deeper than the glory of conquest. By the 3rd century CE, the empire's vastness became its burden. Armies struggled to guard endless borders. Emperors rose and fell in quick succession, sometimes slain by their own soldiers. Inflation soared, and coins lost their shine. Plagues swept through crowded cities. Officials collected taxes with harsh cruelty, and the gap between rich and poor yawned ever wider. In the east, a great city, Constantinople, rose beneath Emperor Constantine, who also granted freedom to the new Christian faith. Now 2 capitals stood, each claiming to be Rome's true heart. Meanwhile, in the west, Germanic tribes pressed harder at the borders. Foederati, barbarian soldiers hired to defend the lands, grew restless. They wanted land, status, and respect. In 410 CE, Rome, forever thought unconquerable, fell to the Visigoths. The city shivered under fire. People wept as the walls trembled. They buried treasures in secret chambers, prayed in every church, and wondered if the world would ever know peace again. Decades later, the last Western emperor, a boy named Romulus Augustulus, bearing once again the name of the founder, was forced to step down. The Western Empire vanished, but its spirit lived on. In every stone arch, every legal code, every language that grew from Latin, we see Rome's ghost smiling back. The Eastern Empire, called Byzantium, endured for another 1,000 years. It held the flame of Roman law, built golden domes in Constantinople, and fought back invaders with iron will. Yet even that great light dimmed at last in 1453, when Ottoman cannons shook the walls. Why does a story so old still matter? Because at its heart lies the story of people like you and me, faced with fear, longing for justice, torn between ambition and compassion. Rome shows that no empire, no matter how vast, can ignore the simple needs of its people. It teaches that written laws protect the weak, that good leaders serve others, and that great cultures are built not on might alone, but on kindness, art, and shared dreams. When you study Rome, you meet farmers who planted olives under the same sun that warmed Caesar's robes. You hear voices of senators trembling before a crowd, just as you might tremble before a difficult choice. You walk roads that still guide travelers today, and you learn that every ending brings a new beginning, just as the fall of Rome led to the birth of new kingdoms, and then, centuries later, to the world we know now. Imagine yourself walking through the Forum at dawn. Pillars glow in golden light. A cool breeze stirs the banners overhead. You hear the distant hoofbeats of a messenger, bearing word of a new law to protect widows, written by simple citizens who held their pens as bravely as any soldier held a sword. You feel hope swell in your chest. That hope is the true legacy of Rome. It belongs to anyone willing to stand for justice, to speak for the voiceless, and to build bridges, whether of stone or of understanding, between strangers, in every classroom where young minds debate, in every courtroom where judges strive for fairness, in every heart that dares to dream of something greater. Rome lives on. So let this story inspire you. Let it remind you that even the greatest empire began with two children by a river, relying on each other and on the kindness of a wolf. Let it teach you that the smallest act of courage, publishing a vote, feeding a hungry neighbor, speaking truth to power, can echo through centuries.